EdTechMondays Uganda is supported by the Mastercard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning and the Innovation Village. Welcome to EdTechMondays. Now, the slowdown of the education sector occasioned by COVID-19 lockdowns forced Ugandan educators and innovators into innovative ways to continue teaching and learning for close to 10 million students. Whilst blended learning, that was praised as the ultimate mix and match of online learning and face-to-face teaching, was taken up mostly by urban schools, its uptake in rural schools remains a very worry for equitable learning outcomes. In this month's edition of EdTech, we explore how blended learning can be utilized, scaled, and deployed across the education ecosystem to improve equitable learning outcomes. And to do that, I have an expert panel with me today. I'll start with you, Lillian. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Raymond.
Yeah.
Lillian Nakasuja. I do strategy analytics at Refactory. Refactory is really an academy that does scaling for technology across lots of software engineering disciplines. Extremely passionate about empowering people, and I think what I love the most about the work that we do at Refactory is just seeing someone that walks into the academy with just an idea of what it is they want to become, and then they come out when they are absolutely employed and they cannot believe that in a 9 months period they were able to come from zero to a software engineer.
That's lovely. Yes, Tembo?
My name is Tembo Charles Luanga, the founder of The Lesson, a company that is converting the Uganda national curriculum to video so that all Ugandans have equal access to our education. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So I don't want to assume that our audience knows what blended learning is. And Lillian, I presume that you're an expert at something like this. Yeah. What would you say is blended learning?
So blended learning takes on quite a number of forms, but what we know in Uganda mostly is that you get to learn online and then you get to have a face-to-face interaction. That is the most known form of blended learning. However, it could also be that there's some information that is provided on a platform that a student will come and download and access offline, and then go back to the platform when they have the internet and upload their coursework or assessment results. That's all blended learning. It could also include a class where everyone is available in the physical, but then the teacher incorporates other kinds of learning than what we were used to initially, where everything is on a board. So the teacher would incorporate maybe some videos in the session, some gamification in the same session, where they're also doing learning on a blackboard. So blended learning brings together different forms of learning beyond just the usual traditional learning that we're used to, where everything was with a teacher in front of a class delivering information. It just has to incorporate some face-to-face, some online learning, and some other ways that help the students get information and get it in the way they understand it better.
Charles, what went into the innovative process for creating a platform like that would enable blended learning? What were you thinking about? What problem were you trying to solve at the time?
So way back in 2019, that is when we started thinking about developing this product. So what was happening, that was actually way before COVID even came. What was actually happening was the girls were getting pregnant and getting out of school, others coming back to school. They want to sit in class when they are pregnant with all that fatigue. Then there are these ones who they are sending home to get school fees, and they are taking a lot of time home. At school, the teacher is rolling, they are learning. But these ones who have gone to look for fees, they are missing out. They come back to school, they have missed. They're spending all the time copying notes, and so this was lowering their performance, and generally at the end of it all, the person is not performing well when the final exams come. So we were like, okay, because during holidays, we also used to hire coaching teachers. We go sit in a school somewhere, the guy comes and starts teaching us, and we collect money and pay him. So everyone, remember, we are from different schools. We studied different styles, so this person teaching us is also just going to teach us the way he learned. Most of them are not even teachers. They are just best schools on the village, best students on the village. So we were like, okay, these things that people study in Uganda are the same. what the other ones studied last year, the same things that they are going to study the next year, and the difference might be the teacher teaching and the way these people actually explain. So why don't we record this content so that we have it in video? So that in case a student is not seated in class, they can go to this platform and then they start learning. They actually follow along. So the whole idea was to record it in a chronological order, just the way the curriculum is organized. So that if they were on topic 2 and I leave school, I will go to the lesson and also start from topic 3 so that when I come to school and we are doing the end of term exam, I have actually also covered the same as those that were sitting in class. Actually even better than them, because I can rewind and understand better. I can ask the teachers, who have teachers on board, who these people can ask, and teachers respond to them. Teachers give them questions, topical questions, they answer, submit to teachers, teachers give back the feedback. So we thought this would fill that gap of the stigma of the young mothers, those failing to have continuous access to classes, and then all so that we can have equal access to education across the country.
When you deploy this platform in schools, what is the uptake like? What do you normally hear from the students?
The feedback actually comes from the parents of those students, saving them the hassle of bringing in different teachers in their homes to come and teach their students. Yeah, but here all the teachers are on one platform. So you don't have to hire a chemistry teacher, you don't have to hire a SST teacher or science teacher. You just pay 1,000 shillings a day. Those are 24 hours, and you study whatever you want to study.
Lillian, if I could come to you, there are two unique problems that COVID-19 ushered into the education system. The first was continuity of education itself. But the second and more important one was the relevance of that education. Many young people who were not in school eventually got into business and realized this thing actually doesn't work the way they say it does. When you start deploying blended learning at places like Refactory, what do your students tell you about the efficacy of the education, but also the importance of the education to what they want to do?
I really like what you've asked, Raymond, because after 2020, ushering into 2020, we started seeing students that rethought the whole idea of going to HSC, higher school, because they did not understand why they had to go through another 2 years of studying a lot of theory from school, yet they'd already discovered they wanted to be maybe software engineers or some data analytics people. And they figured, why do I have to go through this learning of secondary school, higher school, yet I could just skip and go and become who I really want to become. So for us at Refactory, we saw that even before COVID. However, COVID then made it even a much bigger opportunity for all these students that were coming out of S6, and maybe they had not got the right, the right points to get into the university. And so they had these options of, do I go back and study the higher education certificate just to get into the university? Or I could just go straight and do my 9 months, and after 9 months, I am employable. So we saw a lot of, especially girls, come to the program, although we keep encouraging them that this should not be the end of it all. Use this as your stepping stone to becoming who you want to become. Because the market that we operate in, a degree is important until you don't have it. Yeah? No, it's unimportant until you don't have it, yes. And then you need it. So that whole thing of people wondering if they really needed to have this higher school education and the university education was the reason why Refactory was actually birthed, to help people understand that you may have amassed a lot of knowledge, but you need to be skilled for you to be able to apply those skills in a workplace. And so as much as COVID happened when it happened, it just emphasized the reason why Refactory was already existing anyway.
One of the core tenets of the blended learning is to actually bring skills-based training into the classrooms.
Yes.
How have you seen that happen at Refactory with the students that you have?
So At Refactory, we have what we call project-based learning, where we have industry projects brought into the classroom. I'll give an example. Stanbic Uganda has a project. They want to implement some system, a small system that can be handled by student learners. We call them apprentices, over a 6 months period. And we bring that to them to have the actual experience of what it means to be in a workplace, while you're also learning to do what you would have done in a workplace. And so that helps them to not only have knowledge, but actual skills. And at the end of the 6 months, we normally see that these students are then taken on by these organizations. So we've made many partnerships in the industry, very many organizations, not just technology industries, technology organizations. It can also be an NGO that wants a platform to do whatever management systems they want to do. And we see that at the end of these 6 months of doing what we call the apprenticeship program, where the students are learning, but also implementing an actual industry project, they will come up more than employable than their counterparts who have spent 3 years at the university learning, but then they do not know how to critically think, solve a problem, or even just work with a team, be able to understand what does this client want, how do I then solve it into the solution they want it to be from the very, very big problem that they gave it to us with. So yeah, that's just how we see it happen.
Charles, if I could bring into this conversation just before we go for the break, there's the question of the divide in the education between the rural and urban areas, or the rich and the poor really. And many people think that blended learning can only work for urban areas and for students of wealthy parents. Is this a healthy assessment of blended learning in Uganda?
Yeah, currently, according to the approach that most people are taking, it is going to the direction of those who can afford these gadgets, who can afford computers, tablets, internet. But we are looking at an idea. First, we are creating the content. Then we would like to establish study centers in the rural areas. So the study center will be well equipped with the computers, the internet, the power supply, so that the children on that village can just walk to the study center, access the computers, and learn. So we can restrict the computers to only access this learning material to cover up this gap of those in town and those in the villages. The same study centers will be conducting practicals. That is where we shall have laboratories, where after studying, if you need to do a practical, you do, because the new curriculum is more of practical. Yeah, so we need to put this in place to cover the gap in the rural areas.
What are the kind of resources that we would need for something like that to succeed? And which people, when I mention resources, I also want you to tell me which people do you think have these kinds of resources?
Well, for us, we have the idea. We really need support from different stakeholders. The which resources part is the structure. We may not have to build structures at the beginning. In the communities, there are community leaders. You can use their homes to set up these structures and just improve the area where they have given us to set up. Because buying land and constructing these structures can be so costly at the beginning. So we can partner with those people, the community leaders in villages, and set up the structure. The structure basically needs computers, 50 computers per establishment, and then we set up the internet. That is really good to stream these videos and also be able to communicate to remote teachers. And also security and power supply. Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. We're going to take a very short break. When we get back, we have more discussions around blended learning in Uganda, but particularly about the resources required for blended learning. EdTech Mondays Uganda is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning and the Innovation Village. Welcome back from the break. We've been talking about blended learning, and just before we went into the break, we talked about the resources that are required for blended learning, and I guess that's where I want to pick it up from, and with you, Lillian. The divide in blended learning requires resources. It requires computers, it requires internet connections, and those are not constant across the country. Just from like an expert perspective, what are the kinds of things we need to be doing at a policy level to bridge that divide?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of the digital transformation roadmap.
Yes.
I think policy is already being put in place for this, because before we used to think that digital economy is just one of those other parts of the economy. Until then, during COVID, then it became more and more apparent and understandable for the entire, the country, that the digital economy is not just one of those other sections of the economy. It's the enabler for everything. So I think right now, the policymakers are thinking differently about digital, about the devices, the internet, basically ensuring that digital proficiency is across the board, mainstream for everybody, democratize it, and not just leave it for the urban and peri-urban people, while all of our people in the last mile only get to hear of these things. I was reading up and I found that apparently about 85% of the teachers in the rural schools before or just after COVID had ended never even had owned a smartphone in their lives. And yet here we were in Kampala and the students were having some form of learning going on, you know. So what does that mean then for policy? How do we bring the teachers who are upcountry to even just to the level of understanding how to use a device? So in terms of policy making, it's thankfully it's already underway with a digital transformation roadmap that was launched sometime in August. It has thematic areas in the areas of I think it's digital infrastructure and digital proficiency that are very focused on education. How do we roll out this education to reach even the people in the most rural areas, the most marginalized communities, refugees? So that's all the work that's going into policy and ensuring that it's not just for people around Kampala, but everyone in whichever format. So it has to then look into things like where the internet has not yet reached, because yes, we like to say the internet is ubiquitous, but it's not. It's really not. Even when we have MTN and Airtel across the country, you will still find that some areas are still on 3G. And that does not help at all with trying to do this whole online learning at all. So how does a policy then ensure that there's enough devices and just enough internet to download information, have it offline for the students to come and access it when they're able to do that? Because they're in marginalized communities, they're in rural areas, perhaps they don't even come to school every day. So those are all things that policy has to put into consideration and not just the usual learning the way we know it.
So away from those mechanical and heavy ones, there's also the layman perspective, which is just the mindset shift. For example, in many rural communities, you still get sports betting results where people are able to Google which football player is playing in what. And those are that's the same mindset you would need to deploy blended learning. So what would you do on the mindset shift?
The mindset, I think it starts with the teacher. Just getting the teacher to understand that you can still be able to relay information without necessarily being there. That's just a mindset shift of its own, because our teachers are used to, I must be in front of the students. So just them getting to understand that you can simply use this device to teach these students or to even show them something more important than what you already know from your knowledge is a good mindset shift. I think also having our students get to know that devices are not just for sports betting or for gaming, but you can also use it for learning. You can use it to search beyond what the teacher showed you and get to learn more. You can use it to come up with some creative stuff that maybe the teacher never ever showed you in class. And those are the 21st century skills that we're heading towards. So for the students, like, you cannot just be there and wait for what the teacher will give you. You have to have a mindset shift as a student to know that now that I have access to the device, policymakers and everybody else out there have made sure that we have access to the devices. How much more do I use this device to make me job ready for the global market?
Charles, if I could come to you, what is it that you in the innovation spaces can do to make blended learning a reality for rural communities?
The whole idea of learning is to create what to learn. The infrastructure can always come, only that it tends to be a story of an egg and a hen, which one should come first. But when there is what to learn, the people can always buy these gadgets. So in the innovation space, we are focusing on content creation. Create the need for the government to put the internet there. Create the need for the government to subsidize on the prices of the internet and the gadgets that people need to buy. In fact, people actually buy these gadgets for their children, and they just use it to play games and go on YouTube and watch movies. But when we create the need for people to have these gadgets, they will actually buy them. A lot of people have acquired smartphones because of WhatsApp. But WhatsApp built knowing that there is no smartphone on Africa. But when it came in place, Africa is a big market for Android phones. So what I think we need to focus on is creating the need for people to consume these things. So we create the content, we bring it to them, and then they will find different ways of delivering it to different market segments, to different groups of people in the rural areas. Because we know what is in the rural areas. In the rural areas, internet is inadequate. There is no electricity. There is not even a single shop selling gadgets. The teachers there are not the best. The best teachers are fished and brought to the city. But even the best students end up leaving the villages. So if we get these best teachers and they teach this content, that means someone in Nakapiripiriti will have the chance to access the best explanation of a particular concept when we deliver it to them. Well, at the same time, we are also storing memory of the best teachers. The best teachers that we had have died and with all their knowledge. But when we have recorded this, even our children will have the chance to access it. And then the new curriculum being student-centered, teachers come and teach, and actually students go and do most of the work. Almost 75% is research of the student. So we really need to create a lot of avenues where the learners can do their research, in addition to the school libraries that are not actually most equipped. So that students have enough to access the learning. Probably this is going to improve on the general performance and put more focus on the sciences, so that people get big performance in sciences. Maybe in the future we shall curb unemployment.
But if I could ask about the things like the nature, the size and quality of video, for example, those are things within your ambit. You can reduce the size and quality of the video so that in places where the internet is not the very best, the download can take shorter time spans. What are you doing about things like that?
According to the resources we have at hand, we decided to put the videos on YouTube, but in unlisted format. So YouTube controls the visibility. You have low internet, it gives you another version of the video. You have high speed, it gives you HD.
Wow.
Yeah, so it controls it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Lillian, now in conclusion, really, what are your parting remarks on blended learning in Uganda? What can we achieve possibly in the next 5-10 years? What do we need to do to achieve that? And where do you see us going?
I like that. So I think, first of all, we need to first measure what is really going on with our blended learning right now. Is it working? And if it's not working, what needs to be changed? If there's a part of it that's working, how do we make it better? So that we don't think that we cracked this when people went and started using Zoom, and then because a teacher was behind a screen and delivering something to so many people, you've cracked this whole blended learning thing. So I think, how do we make this better in the next 5 to 10 years is, first of all, measuring how we are doing right now. How is the uptake with the students? How is the uptake with the teachers and the facilitators? At Refactory, we call them facilitators. We don't call them teachers because they only facilitate the learning. They don't teach. So how are the facilitators tuning themselves to the online version when they're teaching, vis-a-vis when they're in the face-to-face arrangement? And then we have to measure all things such as, did we actually design this learning around how the humans are taking it in? Is it working for everyone? Because, you know, there are different kinds of learners. Some are visual, Some want to have actual face-to-face interaction. Some want to read. So they're happy to go download stuff from a repository, read it on their own, internalize it, and then come back and be able to give you back the right answers, while someone else just needs interaction with people 1 to 3 minutes and they've understood. So we need to first measure how are we doing across the board, and not just for what we have already seen that is possibly working, but how are we doing across the board, and then be able to pick up those different data points that we want to improve, and then we can be able to see what 5 years, 10 years from now would look like. Would there be a place where now there's even no need for a facilitator ever, where the students can just be given a round table to discuss things that they went and read on their own? So at this point in time, possibly we don't even need too much video guided learning, but the students are coming to discuss what they found on their own. But also to ensure that, because learning has assessment involved in it, so you cannot just assume that it's just giving out information. How are we going to ensure that these students have learned what we give them? So the assessment part is also really, really key. 5 to 10 years from now, in fact, not 5 to 10 years from now, right now, schools are struggling with this whole assessments being submitted and they're full of ChatGPT from the beginning to the end. So with the whole blended learning aspect, the students now have access to open exams where we now have to then put into other aspects of how do we detect plagiarism, how do we detect cheating, even just the likelihood of it, such that we are not now closing the gap on access and then opening up the era of cheating and people just failing to be able to think on their own. So being able to think about all those things, we will be able to have, I like to think of it as the simplest way to learn, where it just becomes a part of our lives. I want to learn product management. I know where to go and find it because someone created videos a long time ago. And I also know where to go across the globe to find all the information I need to piece it all together. And then in 3 months, I can appear and I say, I am ready to do product management. I don't need to have studied it anywhere with a person. That's how I see blended learning grow in the next 5 to 10 years, to just enable students to be able to learn on their own. Then it will become sustainable. Of course, it will not do away with the teachers, because teachers are always needed to guide and facilitate, but they should not be the ones that we depend on for all of the learning that happens. And if it starts at the grassroots, like from the primary level, by the time a student is 14, 16, they know how to do on their own. They know that if I want to learn French, I'll go to Duolingo. I don't need to wait for the teacher to give me notes. That's all blended learning.
Yeah. Charles, before you make your concluding remarks, how do you assess students on your platform?
So assessments, at the end of every topic, the teachers provide topical questions. Generally, the way the learning is organized according to the curriculum, after every topic, there are topical questions. So they leave the PDF file there. When the learner has gone through the whole topic, they get that PDF, they respond to the questions, they submit them back through the platform. The teacher gets a copy, marks the student, and sends back to them through their email. Yeah, but at the same time, basically that is how we do assessment. The other part is doing corrections of what the student failed.
And are you able to monitor a user, say like a student, and monitor their performance through different subjects or through different lessons?
No, at the moment, no. We don't own that. But it is something we can think of and upgrade the system.
All right. Okay. Your concluding remarks, please.
And what I would like to tell the learners is today information is all over the place, as she had talked of ChatGPT. So power is no longer with information, but what you can do with the information that you have.
All right, thank you, Lillian, thank you, Charles, and thank you so much, our viewer, for watching us today. This has been the season finale of EdTech Mondays. We'll be back again next year with more conversation from education and technology enthusiasts on how we can continue learning outcomes for learners in Uganda. Have a good day. EdTech Mondays Uganda is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning and the Innovation Village.